Have you ever stood in front of your plants and watched them begin to wilt, shed their leaves, or become covered in that strange white fuzz, wondering, what am I doing wrong? I have seen this happen in countless gardens, greenhouses, and home plant corners. You give your plants time, water, attention, and care, yet somehow pests appear, roots begin to rot, and stubborn diseases take hold. When that happens, it is easy to think the answer must be at the garden center, sitting on a shelf in an expensive bottle filled with strong chemicals, heavy fertilizers, or harsh fungicides. But sometimes, one of the most useful tools for saving struggling plants is not in the garden aisle at all. It may already be in your medicine cabinet, costing less than $1. Welcome back to Earthly Delights, where we explore the living world beneath our feet, the beauty of every harvest, and the simple gardening wisdom that still works in modern life. Today, we are talking about hydrogen peroxide, the same bubbling liquid many people keep for small cuts and scrapes. Used correctly, it can become a powerful helper for plants. By the end of this video, you will understand why misting your plants with hydrogen peroxide can make such a difference, and more importantly, how to use it safely, wisely, and with real gardening purpose. Let's step into the garden and begin. Section 1. The magic of the extra oxygen molecule. To truly understand why hydrogen peroxide can be so useful in the garden, we first need to answer one simple question. What is this plain-looking liquid? In chemistry, hydrogen peroxide is called H2O2. That means it is very close to water, H2O, but with one extra oxygen atom attached to it. And that extra oxygen atom is unstable, which is exactly what gives hydrogen peroxide its special power. So why does that matter for your plants? Because that tiny bit of extra oxygen turns ordinary-looking liquid into a strong, oxidizing helper. Think about the way a garden looks after a fresh thunderstorm. The leaves seem greener, the stems look stronger, and the whole garden feels as if it has suddenly woken up. That is not just imagination. Rainwater can naturally contain small amounts of hydrogen peroxide, formed through reactions in the atmosphere and the energy released during lightning. When you use properly diluted hydrogen peroxide in your garden, you are working with that same natural principle. Once H2O2 touches soil or organic matter, it quickly breaks down into two simple things: water and oxygen. It leaves behind no toxic residue, which is one reason many gardeners value it as a cleaner, more practical option. But the real question is this: how does that extra oxygen help a struggling plant recover from the ground up? To see that clearly, we need to begin with one of the most common and dangerous problems gardeners face. Section 2. The ultimate rescuer from root rot. Imagine this: you have been caring for your favorite houseplant, watering it faithfully and giving it every bit of attention you can, yet it keeps wilting. The leaves begin to turn a weak, unhealthy yellow, and nothing you do seems to bring it back. Then you lift it from the pot to check what is happening below the soil, and you find the real problem: dark, soft, mushy roots with a bad smell. That is the quiet destroyer many gardeners fear: root rot. In most cases, root rot begins with too much water and soil that has become too compacted. When the soil stays soaked, oxygen disappears from the root zone, creating the perfect environment for harmful fungi and bacteria, such as Pythium and Phytophthora. These pathogens thrive where roots cannot breathe, and over time, they weaken, suffocate, and break down the entire root system. This is where hydrogen peroxide can be extremely useful when handled correctly. When a diluted peroxide solution reaches infected roots, that extra oxygen begins to oxidize and damage the cell walls of the organisms, causing the rot. At the same time, as the peroxide breaks down, it releases fresh oxygen into the root area, giving those struggling roots a chance to breathe again. In a real sense, it works like emergency care for a plant that is drowning below the soil. To do this rescue properly, remove the plant from its pot and cut away the black, mushy roots with clean, sterilized scissors. Then soak the remaining healthy roots in a mixture of 1 part 3% hydrogen peroxide and 2 parts water for about 5 to 10 minutes. You can also spray the roots thoroughly before placing the plant into fresh, well-draining soil. Once you understand that root rot is often a lack of oxygen problem, it becomes much easier to see how restoring that breath can help bring a plant back from the edge. Section 3. The unsung hero against pests. Now let's move from the roots up to the soil surface and talk about one of the most frustrating problems in any garden or indoor plant collection: pests. Have you ever touched the side of a pot and suddenly seen a cloud of tiny black flies rise into the air? Those little flies are fungus gnats. The adults are mostly annoying, but the real trouble is happening below the soil, where their larvae feed on young, tender roots. Instead of reaching straight for harsh chemical pesticides that can disturb the balance of your growing space, you can use hydrogen peroxide in a simple, targeted way. Mix 1 part 3% hydrogen peroxide with 4 parts water. Wait until the top layer of soil has dried out, then drench the soil with this mixture. As it touches the soil, you may hear that light sizzling or fizzing sound. That reaction is the oxidation process at work, attacking the soft-bodied fungus gnat larvae and their eggs on contact. But pests do not only live in the soil. Some of the most damaging ones attack the leaves directly. Spider mites and aphids are tiny sap-sucking pests that slowly drain strength from your plants. For these, use a gentle foliar spray made with 1 teaspoon of 3% hydrogen peroxide mixed into 1 cup of water. Spray it directly onto the leaves, especially the undersides where these pests like to hide. The solution helps disrupt their protective outer layers, giving your plants a better chance to recover. It is remarkable how something so simple from the medicine cabinet can become such a useful protector in the garden. Section 4. Banishing fungal diseases and mold. If you have ever grown squash, zucchini, or cucumbers in the backyard, you probably know how discouraging powdery mildew can be. It often begins with just a few harmless-looking white spots, but before long it can spread across the plant like a dusty white blanket, covering leaves and weakening the whole plant. And indoors, especially during damp winter months, you may also notice a crusty, fluffy white mold forming on the surface of potting soil. These fungal problems are more than just ugly. They compete with the plant for nutrients, block sunlight from reaching the leaves, and can slow down photosynthesis until the plant loses its strength. This is where hydrogen peroxide becomes useful again. As a natural oxidizer, it can work as an effective antifungal tool when used properly. To treat powdery mildew, mix about 4 tablespoons of 3% hydrogen peroxide with a pint or a quart of water in a spray bottle. Spray the affected leaves thoroughly, both the tops and undersides, and do it in the cool morning or evening so wet leaves are not exposed to harsh sun. The peroxide helps break down fungal spores and stops them from spreading further. For white mold on the soil surface, keep the process simple. Let the soil dry out first, scrape away the worst of the moldy top layer if needed. Then water with a mixture of 1 part hydrogen peroxide and 3 parts water. It is a clean, practical way to help restore balance. Few things are more satisfying than seeing a sick plant push out a fresh, healthy green leaf after you gave it the right care at the right time. Section 5. Supercharging seed germination. Now let's move away from rescuing struggling plants and talk about starting new life from seed. There is something truly special about holding a tiny dormant seed in your hand and knowing that, with the right conditions, it can become a strong, productive plant. But every gardener knows seeds do not always wake up easily. Some refuse to sprout, while others germinate well at first, then suddenly collapse and die overnight from the heartbreaking problem known as damping off. Hydrogen peroxide can give your seed starting process a real advantage when used carefully. In nature, a hard seed coat may be weakened by freezing weather, passing through animals, or long, steady rains. We can support that process in a safer, controlled way. By soaking seeds in a very diluted peroxide solution, such as 1 tablespoon of 3% hydrogen peroxide mixed into 1 cup of water for a few hours or even overnight, the extra oxygen helps gently soften the tough outer coating. At the same time, it sanitizes the seed surface by reducing fungal spores and harmful bacteria, including E. coli or salmonella, that may contribute to damping off or other problems. Studies show that this small oxygen boost can also act like a biological signal, encouraging the seed to wake up, absorb moisture, and begin its growth process. The result is often faster, more even germination, with stronger seedlings that have a better start from the very beginning. Section 6. Keeping things pristine. Hydroponics and tool hygiene. For more advanced gardeners and indoor growers working with hydroponics, Water quality is one of the most important things to protect. In systems like deep water culture or nutrient film setups, water that sits too long without enough oxygen can quickly become a home for algae and root-damaging pathogens. This is where a careful maintenance dose of hydrogen peroxide, around 3 millimeters per liter of water, can help keep the water clearer, break down algae cell walls, and increase dissolved oxygen around the submerged roots. But good garden hygiene is not only for hydroponic growers. It matters in every garden, every potting bench, and every small indoor plant corner. Think about what happens when you prune a diseased plant and then use the same shears on a healthy one. Without meaning to, you may be carrying disease from one plant to the next. Dirty tools can hold microscopic viruses, fungal spores, and other problems that spread faster than many gardeners realize. Instead of relying on harsh bleach, you can wipe or spray pruning shears, pots, and seed trays with undiluted 3% hydrogen peroxide. It is simple, practical, and much easier to work with for regular garden cleanup. And for city growers, there is one more useful trick. Municipal tap water often contains chlorine, which helps keep people safe, but may disturb the delicate beneficial microbes living in potting soil. Hydrogen peroxide can react with free chlorine and help neutralize it, making tap water gentler for sensitive houseplants. Sometimes, understanding just a little garden chemistry can solve everyday problems in a very practical way. Section 7. The Golden Rules. Myths, Mistakes, and Safety. Now, before you take that bottle from the bathroom and start pouring hydrogen peroxide all over the garden, we need to slow down and talk seriously. This is a useful tool, but only when it is used with care. Like many things in gardening, the secret is not using more. The secret is using the right amount at the right time. So let's clear up a few myths, talk about safety, and remember the golden rule of moderation. First, hydrogen peroxide is not a miracle fertilizer. You may see bold claims online saying it can feed your plants, but that is not true. It contains no nitrogen, no phosphorus, and no potassium. What it can do is help roots stay cleaner, healthier, and better oxygenated, which may support nutrient uptake, but it cannot replace real plant food. Another common myth is that hydrogen peroxide can permanently aerate heavy, compacted clay soil. It may fizz and release oxygen for a short time, but it does not change the deep physical structure of compacted soil. Second, dilution is absolutely essential. Always start with standard 3% household hydrogen peroxide and dilute it with water from there. Do not use strong industrial or food-grade peroxide, such as 30% or 35%, unless you truly understand precise dilution and safety. At that strength, it can burn plant roots badly and seriously injure your skin. Finally, remember that hydrogen peroxide is a non-selective oxidizer. It does not know the difference between harmful root rot bacteria and beneficial microbes or mycorrhizal fungi that help your plants thrive. If you use it too often or too strong, you can damage the living ecosystem in your soil. Use it like a targeted treatment for a clear problem, not like a daily supplement. And before spraying an entire plant, always test a small leaf first, especially with sensitive plants such as orchids or African violets. Conclusion. So there you have it, my fellow earth lovers. We have walked through the tiny living world inside the soil, looked at the simple chemistry behind rainwater, and seen how one inexpensive, eco-friendly bottle of hydrogen peroxide can help revive struggling roots, fight pests, control mold, and wake up stubborn seeds. Gardening is always a close conversation between us and nature. It teaches us to observe carefully, wait patiently, and step in gently when the balance begins to shift. When we understand how hydrogen peroxide works, especially how it delivers that fresh burst of oxygen, we become more than people who grow plants. We become better caretakers of living things. Will you look at that brown bottle in your medicine cabinet a little differently now? Try these methods with care. Help that tired houseplant recover. Protect your zucchini from powdery mildew. Step into your garden and put the power of oxygen to work. If these tips helped you and you want more practical, beautiful gardening wisdom from the earth, subscribe to Earthly Delights, like this video, and share it with a friend whose plants could use a little extra care. What plant problem will you try hydrogen peroxide on first? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, keep your hands in the soil, keep your heart open to learning, and may your earthly delights grow stronger, healthier, and more abundant. See you in the garden.